All right, this time we're going to resume the meeting of May 15th, 2017. Vice Mayor Clower, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Gilio?
Here.
Vice Mayor Clower?
Here.
Mayor Velazquez?
Here.
Councilmember Friend?
Present.
Councilmember Luna?
Present.
City Manager Avra?
Here.
City Attorney Diaz?
Present.
Chief of Police Westrick?
Here.
And the record will show Tom Graves is absent.
Thank you. Verification of agenda posting.
The agenda for the City Council of the City of Hollister meeting of May 15th, 2017 was posted on the bulletin board at City Hall on May 10th, 2017 at 3:18 p.m. per Government Code Section 54954.2.
Thank you. City Attorney, do you want to report out from closed session?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. No action was taken on the one item that was discussed in closed session. Thank you.
Thank you. Tonight we have two proclamations, one for Peace Officers Week and one for the Buddy Poppy Days. Chief, you're going to come on up. Say what? Sorry, crowding you there. Whereas the Congress and President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week. And now, therefore, I, Ignacio Velasquez, Mayor of the City of Hollister, call upon all residents of the City of Hollister and all patriotic civic and educational organizations to observe the week of May 15th through the 19th, 2017, as National Police Week. Remember them for their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities that they have rendered and dedicated service to their communities, and in doing so have established for themselves an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all citizens. I further call upon everyone to observe May 15th, 2017 as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of those law enforcement officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have become disabled in their performance of duty. And let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes. Chief.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'll bring us back to the PD, and it's much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. There you are. I was looking for my poppies. Time passes so fast, doesn't it? Good to see you again. Buddy Poppy Days. Whereas the annual distribution of Buddy Poppies by the veterans of foreign wars of the United States has been officially recognized and endorsed by governmental leaders since 1922. And now, therefore, I, Ignacio Velasquez, Mayor of the City of Hollister, hereby proclaim May 19th, 2017 as Buddy Poppy Days in the City of Hollister, and urge the residents of this community to recognize the merits of this cause by contributing generously, right, to its support through purchase of Buddy Poppies on these days set aside for the distribution of these symbols of appreciation for the sacrifices of our honored dead. I urge all patriotic citizens to wear a Buddy Poppy as mute evidence of our gratitude to the men and women of this country who have risked their lives in defense of the freedoms which we continue to enjoy as American citizens. Thank you so much.
Thank you for this proclamation, council members. How do you do? I'm Dolly DeVassier, President of the Auxiliary of the Veterans of Foreign Wars, and this is my chairman here for the Poppy Days. His name is Aaron Mirandas, and we're going to be around town, around the stores, post office, and places like that. Hopefully we collect a lot of money this time because our veterans really need it. And all that we collected or will collect goes to the Veterans Relief Fund. I want to thank you all very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to move forward to the consent calendar. Are there any items council would like to pull?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull A8 just for clarification.
A8. Any others?
A14.
A14.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, were you done there?
Go ahead.
I'd like to pull A10 for clarification. And one more here. A13.
Are there any items from the public?
Not that have already been pulled.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye, motion carries. We'll move to item A8.
Good evening. Good evening. And just for clarification, and it's just because questions were asked of me to respond. Actually, it's just one room, right? That the city is taking
yes,
back.
it's the Arnold Carrillo room. It's room 6. And when there was the initial 20-year lease, that was not included in the lease agreement with Gavilan. It was added for the First Amendment for the last 5 years. And then it was determined that the city needs to use it for code enforcement and fire, I believe. And so the issue was raised at one of the Economic Vitalization Committee meetings for the Downtown Association. There was some concern, and Dr. Kathleen Rose, the president of Gavilan, said she didn't think it would be a huge issue. The Gavilan's already using other spaces within the city of Hollister to provide classes.
Okay.
So, but we do have a memo, and we are requesting an amendment to Resolution 2017-113. It came to our attention last week that there was a error on the exhibit showing the premises for the lease, and I guess there's a switch. There's one storage area on the west side of the building that is used by the Fire Academy by Gavilan, and on the exhibit that's shown as something that's not in the lease area, and then there's a larger area contiguous to it that was shown that wasn't part of the lease area that is actually used by the City of Hollister Police Department. So we have an amended Exhibit B showing the correct premises, and then the square footage of the lease area is less. And so the Exhibit B, Exhibit A has the map, and Exhibit B has the lease schedule. So we're recommending the resolution be approved with the amendments shown in the memo.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, any other questions? Do we have any speaker cards?
No, Mr. Mayor.
All right, is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye, motion carries. We'll move to item A10.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening.
Just had a couple of clarifying questions.
Sure.
I wanted to know when this project was allocated, when we first started working on this project with the developer.
The project was initiation of a pre-zone because it was in the county back in March 17, 2014, and it also involved the Cutts property. So there was some other pre-zoning. I'm looking to see when that actually got the allocations. Okay, so on April 23rd, 2015, there was a planning commission approved the mitigated neg deck for pursuant to CEQA and approved the pre-zone for the Cuts Del Curto, Brigantino, and Mermoid properties as a 3 or 4 different projects all at one time that was taken care of in one CEQA document to, for cost efficiency on that. Planning Commission the Planning Commission recommended City Council the inclusion of 16 properties west of El Cerro Drive as well. That means that during that CEQA process, it was not just those subdivisions, but existing 16 properties as well were recommended to LAFCO for annexation, and that did occur. And then the tentative map was approved on May 4th, 2016 for the cuts, and I believe right around that same time, the Del Curto property was also approved.
So this project, it's fair to say this project's been in the works for a little over 3 years?
Yes.
Okay. And total units with the 2 projects together is, am I adding it up right, is 40, is that correct?
It's there's 22 residential units on the Del Curto project, and yes, you're right on the remaining to make it 40.
Thank you. That was all I had.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Vice Mayor Clower?
Has the right-of-way been purchased at this point for the extension or the completion of El Cerro and Bonneview?
So I was just told that the right-of-way, a little bit of right-of-way that was necessary for the El Toro Drive was, or El Cerro Drive, was completed, and we do have they do have an agreement for the annexation. I'm sorry, for the easement for that. The Bonneview Drive, they're still working on trying to get that triangular piece dedicated because they're unable to have it done now prior to the recording of the map. They will have to bond for the eminent domain process in order to get that completed.
So will those roads be connected once the improvements are put in, or what happens if they don't get the right-of-way on the Bonneview piece?
So in Bonneview, there is the possibility of doing some temporary private drive that would be to the west of the current property line for Mr. Clifford, and that would serve as a private drive temporary until such time as Bonneview Drive was acquired and able to be completed. That would, if we're unable to get the eminent domain process completed, then when Mr. Clifford or whoever the property owner is at that time decides to develop that property that he's on, this underdeveloped property, then his conditions of approval will include making the connection from what would be the dead end Bonneview in the county to this newly portion.
Quick, sorry, hang on a second. Are we talking about Clifford, the attorney, City of Hollister, Gary Clifford?
Yes.
Okay. I have, he is one of my tenants. At this point, I'm going to recuse myself from this conversation. Sorry, I didn't catch that earlier. I was like, whoa, names are sounding familiar. Thank you. Okay.
Are there any assistant city clerk? Is there any public comment on this or any?
No, Vice Mayor.
Okay. Are there any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to item A13.
Just a couple of quick clarifying, maybe even just a statement. I understand that down the road that several small businesses will be impacted with this, the FOG, the fat oil grease program, and if it's possible, if we could let them know as much in advance and potentially even give them a 6-month or whatever you feel or they feel they need to get their project or their fat trap or their grease trap up to code. I just appreciate them getting as much notice as possible so they don't get hit with this huge cost without knowing about it.
We've already begun a year's worth of investigation and education before we get to that point. And prior to us getting that point, we'll be approaching you for some type of a deferred funding mechanism for those business owners to incorporate it in their water bill or something so it doesn't impact them unfairly.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other questions? Comment? Vice Mayor Clark?
Mike, how many businesses are we talking about?
We just sent the survey out to 85 that we knew about.
Okay.
But we're also talking schools, hospital, cafeteria, in addition to restaurants.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any speaker cards?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item A14.
Yeah, I just brought this up because it was going to come up in my committee reports, and I just wanted everybody to understand. This is just giving the Intergovernmental Committee the idea that the council is behind the fact that we're going to be participating in this joint study and task force to come up with the vision for the TEL Center. So that was the only reason I brought it up, is to make sure everybody's on board with what we're doing. It's not a big money issue. It's just the Intergovernmental Committee was asking for buy-in from all the respective boards and councils. So with that, if there's no speaker cards on the item, I'll make a motion that we approve.
Yes.
Marty Richmond?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Marty Richard from Hollister. As you know, I support the idea of a new library, and I support technological training, and I support education. So you put all three together, and obviously I support the TEL Center. I did not know we needed a formal document to try and get permission to join the task force. But I would like to talk to you about that for a moment. I would, when the task force does meet, whoever's on them, I would hope you reach out to those local groups that have been very interested for a number of years in building a new library or improving the library, and bring them into this situation. Obviously, one that everybody knows is the Friends of the Library. And there are several other smaller groups that have met from time to time over a long period of time and talked about doing something, and they never quite get started. Well, this is one place where the government can do better than a bunch of people, two in this room and two in that room, because it can kind of coalesce everybody. So I hope you would bring them in early into this process so that their ideas, whatever they are, can get aired out and worked through and all those things, rather than have the task force do a lot of things and go over and have people unhappy because they didn't get their input in, didn't get their nickel in. Even if they don't agree, and people often don't agree, if you get your nickel in the pot, people are more satisfied because they got to say what they wanted to say. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any other speakers?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve A14.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye. If it's the pleasure of the council, I'd like to move item G3 to
Let me
after
finish
public.
the vote here. So motion.
You already voted, yeah.
No, we didn't. Motion carries.
Sorry.
5-0 vote. Thank you.
If it's the pleasure of the council, I'd like to move item G3 to after public input. Or now, or other way.
Okay.
Out of professional courtesy, because
Yeah.
Jim will get me back one day, I promise.
Mr. Wright is for his presentation.
Yeah.
If that's all right with the council members? That's a presentation on the shelter, homeless shelter update.
Okay.
Item G3, yeah.
Okay, we'll do that. Thank
I
you
have no issue with that.
Thank you for bringing that up, Vice Mayor. All right, we're going to move to public comment. This is the time for anyone in the audience to speak on any item not on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. When the city clerk calls your name, please come to the podium, state your name and city for the record, and speak to the city council. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes with a maximum of 30 minutes per subject. Please note that state law prohibits the city council from discussing or taking action on any item not on the agenda. Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Zaban Quzada.
Hello, my name is Yvonne Casada, and I'm from San Diego County, Hollister, California, and I'm a full-blown artist. I have a couple ideas that I'd like to pitch to the people of Hollister, and actually the city council as well. I didn't read, actually, the agenda for the one that Mr. Friend chose, because it's a really good one, but I won't talk about it because it's not right, because I'm not following procedure. So I'll just talk about this. I would like to propose that something be done about the art and culture, like always. But there's 2 properties, actually, right now that I'm in the works of working with one of them behind Quick Stop. And I would like to turn them into all community action, interactive community art parks. I think Hollister could be, I believe that Hollister, even though small of a community it is, I think there's a lot of really good artists here that have the same kind of strive and determination to bring something to this community like art and culture. I feel that the 2 parks that actually I would like to, talk about, which what it is a discussion of maybe working with the property manager owners, or maybe buying it, the community buying these pieces of property, because in the end it's going to be nothing but a profitable thing for the community as well. I feel that if Hollister was to be able to purchase these plots or emptiness of because there's a lot of empty buildings in Hollister too, and I think they could be filled with artistic things that could bring a drive of tourists, and also other beneficial things like beginning like making maybe a parade. Why not? So things like that I think will bring a lot of tourists here, because I'm really trying to believe in something that is seen by me right now, to let everyone else see what I believe in and see, because it's going to be beneficial. The youth in this community really need something to go to. I really believe that inside that with a little bit of color and a little bit of guidance, people can go a long way, especially the youth. The first park I'd like to talk about, which is behind Quick Stop right here on the east side, is probably one of the most well thought out ones so far. So it's from in and out. It'll be from the beginning of the park to the end of the park, it'll be totally interactive. And there was even also a belief that if you have a super cool park like that, why not have another community or a group of artists get together and pitch an idea about setting up the park the way they want to? And then you can make it like a big community thing where other cities and other communities pick up the idea too. Because I think it'd be kind of cool to go to a park like that, where a group of artists can pitch an idea to maybe set it up the way they want to, and you get it for like a month, kind of like a gallery, but an interactive community park. We got a chalk mountain that we filled up with little chalks, the little jars like that. It ain't gonna even cost no money either, man, because there's people out there that'll donate, that'll help out and donate, because there's people that have drive like me. The other piece of property that would be cool, it would be the one behind 7-Eleven. It's maintained. It's a little bit smaller, but the way the local people that surround it, there's a lot of children there, so it can be maybe focused to a more of a minor, priority, like have like a kids one where a lot of the interacting is with kids and things that they can do. I believe in these projects, and it would be kind of cool to get a community together, because I think that we can build 7 of them in 6 months, and with the right proper teaming together and thinking tanks like this, we can also integrate a library, a technology area, and education to the fullest, full-blown, actually. And I believe in these ideas. I'd like to know after the meeting, maybe if anybody else is interested in the idea that I have and the vision I have, or believe in it. Because the more people that believe in it, the faster it'll happen. And I think Hollister would be pretty cool to have be known worldwide about its interactive art parks, right?
Thank you very much.
Marty Richmond.
Good evening again, Marty Rich from Hollister. And the subject this time is the one that you spent a lot of time on at the workshop, which was the roads, funding road repair. So I want to talk about that. As you know, SB1 is going to eventually send about $1.2 million to the city and $3.5 million a year to the county. And we all know that's not enough money to do the road repairs, because with the $800,000 you get in the highway funds gives you $2 million. We need 3.6 just to stay even. If we want to make any progress, we need a lot more than that. I'm very concerned that we've talked a lot about perhaps doing a tax, and the county wants to do a tax with the city, and I'm confused because I was at the county meeting and they can't seem to decide what they want to do. They sent it back to find another consultant to make another survey. They've surveyed the heck out of this thing, and nothing's happening. And I don't understand. We've invested a lot of time. We've invested a lot of money into the marijuana issues. We've had people, lots of meetings. I don't know how much money we've spent and how much time we've spent on this. It's enormous. And yet we don't seem to have a plan on what we're going to do with this tax money if we get it. And I think a good place to do it would be the roads. And I hate to use my little catchphrase here with all the kids here, but in this case it's pot for the potholes, because we should be planning on what to use about that. I'm more concerned, though, with the basics. And the basics are, I can't seem to find anybody who has any kind of a forecast of how much money any of these things are going to bring in. Not even a minimum and a maximum, and say somewhere in between. So the county doesn't seem to have it. If we have it, I haven't found it yet. It may be buried somewhere, and I'll keep looking. But I don't know any project we head into with so much talk about taxes and taxes and taxes and finances when we don't seem to have a plan what we're going to do with the money. And if we do have a plan and we want it to help the community, I don't particularly like that business, but if it's here, it's here. And I think a good place to use the money would be the roads, because it's supposed to change the community, and nothing will change the community better than getting the roads fixed, the way I see it right now. Like I said, I prefer it not be here at all, but people voted. They're going to get what they want, because this is a democracy, and that's what they voted for. So we ought to do something constructive with the money. And so it's pot for potholes for me, and stay away from the taxes. The people here have been very generous with their tax money, and I think we ought to give them a break. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, I was just double checking a name. Edward Schwenderloff and Alma Tannen.
I like everybody.
Hello. By the way, Alma Tañón, Edward Schwenderloff. And we're here because we're really concerned with the actual construction that is going on behind our house at the Cerrado property. And we've complained about things. He's made people crazy, calling and sending videos and such, but nothing seems to change, okay? On Friday, they started at 6:40 in the morning, okay? We've gotten all kinds of conflicting information as far as when are they supposed to start. Is it residential? Is it commercial? Well, it might be a commercial company, but they're building homes, and they're building homes in a residential area. And it gets to be nerve-wracking when they start working at before 7 in the morning or at 7 in the morning, and they start with all of that noise and everything else that they do. The other thing is that they're not following the procedures that they're supposed to follow when they do a building. They're supposed to stage all of their equipment in one spot. They have it all over the place. And they're, they have it here, they have it there. So in the morning when they get started, they have their stuff staged behind our house. So we get to hear everything. They're supposed to be watering when they excavate, and they don't most of the time, so there's all kinds of dirt, not just dust, dirt flying around through the homes, through that neighborhood. And the worst of it is that I don't know what was done to test the area when this was approved, but the ground shakes. They've been using rollers and stuff to build the roads. The whole house is shaking.
We actually have damage to our home.
Yeah, there's damage to the cracks on the concrete, on the patio, on the driveway, on the garage. There's cracks on the stucco all around the house.
I mean,
and
they're supposed to stage, from when I talked to Charlie, they're supposed to stage near Airline and Meridian. And they're staging right behind our house.
At least most of
every morning, 7 o'clock or before that, all the excavation equipment starts up.
And I know that, and we're still getting conflicting information as far as, are they supposed to start at 8 or are they supposed to start at 7? And people within the city, everybody's going, one says one thing and another one says another. And it just, it's affecting the whole community.
Thank you very much.
Okay?
Thank you for coming out.
John Talia.
John Talia, resident of Hollister and Director of Facilities for the Hollister School District. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. At the April 3rd, 2017 City Council meeting, the council approved resolution number 2017-76 for site improvements at Calaveras Park. And I'm here this evening to thank the council, Mr. Mayor, city manager, and city staff for the great efforts they've done to make improvements to Calaveras Park. There's been a new roof installed on the restroom building at Calaveras Park. They're just finishing up the roof replacement on the pavilion at Calaveras Park. And we are working with city staff on identifying a new play structure to replace the existing play structure there. So we greatly appreciate the partnership and your commitment to investing in the park to benefit not only our students but also our community. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Ken Ravone.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Ken Ravone. I'm from Solutions Recovery International. This is regarding your sewage treatment systems. I understand you wanted to convert that to a park. And also this is regarding a San Benito wastewater treatment ponds that creates a lot of odor during the summer. I'm here to announce our willingness to work with you and partner with you in resolving these issues with San Benito ponds. We have technologies that we can implement that would eliminate this sludge, so that would be a cost saving on hauling the sludge away, and also it would get rid of the odor. As far as your sewage treatment system is concerned, we have a pond system, like a Hillmar in California, that you can convert your treatment system to a pond that could be a park. And we would like to have an audience with you at a later date to explain this technology more and see how we can work together. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anna DeCastro.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. My name is Ana de Castro, and I have here with me students from the Young Readers Program. and they are here to give their thanks for the program. The program has been going on for a couple months now, and they are very excited. Earlier, the parents were telling me that some of the students can't wait for Wednesdays, which is when we have our program. They're very excited. They have we've had very special speakers coming and just read books to them, and they're just always excited. And do you want to say anything? Thank you very much for helping this program. We really appreciate it, and we hope that we can continue with the program for further years.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There are no more speakers, Mr.
No
Mayor.
more speakers. Thank you very much, everyone. Yes, thank you. All right, this time we're going to move to item G3, an update on the homeless shelter.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jim Riding-Sword, Health and Human Services Director for San Benito County. A little over 3 years ago, we were invited to the Intergovernmental Committee. And at the Intergovernmental Committee, they asked us if we could solve the problem of homelessness. We said that solve was probably a stretch. But we could work on resolving homeless issues in San Benito County. And we have been working on that. One of our strong partners in that effort has been the mayor. We thank him for that. And Billy, we thank you for the work that you've done with us. So I have a handout for you, which seems kind of minimal to say this is what we've done in the last 3 years, but this is kind of it. If you look at this, we have purchased a building, 1161 San Felipe Road. It's about 12,000 square feet. It's represented by this blue oblong and this tan area. We have the first thing that we did, well, actually the first thing that the mayor and I did was we went to a homeless kind of presentation and listened to people from all over the country who said that basically what you kind of need to do is to provide housing and provide services to help people to stay in housing. So that's kind of the direction that we've been trying to move into. We first applied for a community block development grant in the 2014 cycle. Everybody said we couldn't get it, and we did. And we used that grant in order to purchase 1161 San Felipe Road after looking at, I'm guessing, 6 or 7 different sites in the community. And the balance of that 2014 grant is going to go into the completion of this blue section. We're going to the Board of Supervisors on the 23rd to ask to have contracts released so that we can get people in there to do the work. We expect this to be open in November of this year. It will serve as a year-round overnight shelter. And we will have 50 beds in here for both men and women. We'll deal with families in different ways because it just seems like, dealing with families in motels and things like that is probably a better thing. And they're a smaller number in the overall population. We will be releasing an RFP for a contractor to run this shelter. We felt like we should try to see if we can find somebody who has experience in the business, knows what they're doing, has connections to foundations, has connections to the faith community that could come and do that. We'll probably be looking for an organization that has more than 5 years of experience, and we know a number of organizations in the region who would meet that definition. So we're hiring a manager to run this entire complex for us, and then as soon as we have released the bids for this contract for the blue section, we're going to release the bids for this section, the tan section, and that section is where we'll house staff to provide services such as housing, employment, getting to your doctor, making your mental health thing, outreach services. We're going to have a large component of outreach services where, at least in my view, we're going to probably have 2 full-time staff who are just going to be working on the streets, talking to homeless people, trying to get them connected up to services, trying to get them connected to things that will help them get off the streets and help them, get into their own place and find their own source of income and so forth. It'll also be an employment center, teaching people about, jobs and things like that. We keep trying to define what are the jobs that are available in San Benito County, particularly for somebody who's coming out of a situation where they probably need to relearn job skills. And so we're continuing to work on that. We believe that if we can help people with housing and help people find jobs and help people be connected to their doctors, help people be connected, to their mental health clinicians, that we can help them kind of move along. Are we going to solve the problem for 100% of the people? Probably not. But can we make progress on that? Yes, we probably can. In Utah, they took a similar approach. They reduced the number of chronically homeless in Utah, the last time I read, by 94%. Now, if we could do that, that would be terrific. If we could even do half of that, that would probably be terrific. And so that's what we're trying to do. In the meantime, we applied for a second community block development grant in 2016, which we're going to use to build out this portion of the building, the other 7,000 square feet. We also applied for a demonstration grant called Whole Person Care. That is, and we're going to get that money. That money will be coming in starting in July. It'll be $1 million a year for about 4 or 5 years, I believe. But it's a Medicaid demonstration grant, which basically means this. If you can demonstrate that you can do something and save some money by doing it, then and California is kind of taking the lead on this, then it will, after 4 or 5 years, it will be rolled into the base funding for Medicaid at the federal level. This is actually an approach that is supported by the current administration, also was supported by the previous administration. So we feel strongly that this is something to do. There are, I believe, about 25 counties, mostly large counties, in California that are in the process of launching or doing whole person care projects. The idea is, again, to wrap services around people, help them make their appointments, help them get jobs, and so forth. At the same time, we were approached by our probation department to apply for something called Prop 47 funds. Now, Prop 47 funds are intended to be focused on those people who are homeless, at risk of homeless, high users of, of multiple systems, and a connection to the criminal justice system. We've been working with our probation office on this, and we're also working with a local community-based organization to help us in that project. We expect that we will get those funds. There was $20 million available at $1 million each, and there were 20 applicants, and we were one of them. So we think the mathematics kind of works for us. So that would bring in about $325,000 in addition. We also applied for a California Medical Services Program grant. We're part of this organization. It basically has provided over the last, well, since 1991, 26 years, services for people who are indigent and not connected with any other kind of healthcare system. It's mostly undocumented folks, and it's a small number. We applied for that and got that. So we have, in essence, about $1.4 million a year for the next 4 or 5 years to operate that back part of the service center. Now, it will probably not be open until spring or summer of 2018. In the meantime, we're going to move forward, and we'll just kind of work out of our current offices to be able to do that. The $1.4 million will do a lot of things. For example, we've had discussions with Hazel Hawkins that if we do these kinds of things, do they think that it will help us reduce the number of people who are homeless, at risk of homeless, high users of systems, or who have a connection to the criminal justice system? Will it help reduce the number of people that are coming into the emergency room? Their answer is yes. And would you be willing to refer those people to us, if they show up? And their answer is yes. And, would it be okay if we worked as a partner in kind of putting this together? And their answer is yes, and we continue to talk with them. You can see the list of our community partners on this list. This is where we are today. This is an amazing place. The mayor and I were talking about this afternoon. Where we were 3 years ago and where we are today is just kind of an amazing thing to happen. I'm just a little overwhelmed. But we have great staff, and we're going to make this work for our community. So with that, let me finish that report, and I'm open for any comments or questions.
Any questions from council? No. Jim, I just want to thank you. I know it's, as you pointed out, 3 years ago we had no plan, no path of where we're going, and to know that we're going to open a year-round shelter by this November is a pretty big deal. And to know that you have programs to start backing that up, because a shelter alone is not the answer. It's the programs that back it up to get people the treatment, the care they need, or the facilities they need to get that job, to get the medical treatment to make the difference. And this is one great example of the city and the county working together. And it's been tough sometimes, and as you point out, we went through quite a few different locations, but we're here now, and it's a partnership that proves together we can make a difference. And I really want to thank you, because you're the one that took the lead on this and really did the research. And as you point out, for us to get that first grant was nothing short of a miracle, and it's because of your leadership. So thank you very much.
Well, and 3 years ago, when you and I reported back to the City Council and to the Board of Supervisors after going to that meeting on homelessness, we said that one of the things that is important in an effort like this is the political will of elected leaders. And I have to say the City Council and the Board of Supervisors has kept the political will to keep this moving forward.
Thank you very much. Do we have any speaker cards?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Jim. We're looking forward to the opening of the facility in November.
Well, I'm going to give you a big thing to cut a red ribbon or something.
Well, thank you very much. All right, this time we're going to move to item E1. Who's taking that item? Charlie.
Howdy. Oh, E1, well, the letters are going out again to the second letters that they're going to go ahead and mitigate all the weeds. So that's what this is right here. In addition to this, we are working with people that are still getting the letters, and we still are getting them in daily. In addition to that, we're working with code enforcement to hit other lots also that need weed abatement. This is working in conjunction with our RFP that's out right now for the for the contracted weed mowers people. So that will commence on June 6th as soon as the award is contracted on June 5th.
All right. Any questions, Council? Councilmember Luna?
That was my question, Charlie, because I know for the past 2 years I've been asking if any quotes are received for other contractors that may be interested in mowing the weeds and all that. And every time I'm being told, yes, we're going out. And so this time you are?
Yeah, so May 1st, the release of the RFP went out for all the lawnmower people. May 15th is the last day for questions. So today was the last day. Yeah, so what they were supposed to do was call Chief Alvarez, and if they had a question, then it would go through Renee, and she would make sure all the people that were submitting RFPs or quotes would get the same questions. So everybody got the same information. So as of 5 o'clock, I don't think anyone got that in. So the 19th, the proposals are due, and May 22nd through the 26th, interviews will be conducted if needed. June 5th, we'll award the contract, and June 6th, they'll start.
Okay.
So once that happens, then they're going to go ahead and the first ones are going to get the contracted the contracted weed mowers will get the Park Hill, Station 2, and Leatherback properties, in addition to all the other properties that haven't been mowed at that time.
Okay. And I have a question. There's a field next to the fire department over here.
That's Station 2's.
That's your station?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's one of the ones that'll get taken care of as soon as.
That'll be the first one? Thank you.
Yeah, that'll be the first. Yeah, that'll be the first one.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Where can a citizen report this? Do you have an app? Do you have a website to go to, or an email address, or where should we?
You could call down to the station 636-4325 and report anything. And then on code enforcement, the MyPD app.
Smartphone app they can use too.
Great. And
you can even Facebook it. We scan them all.
Perfect. I had a couple questions on that from the folks out in my district. And then finally, in the RFP, if you know, is there any local preference given, like any local differential to get a local contractor?
I'm not sure on that. I don't think
Okay.
so. I think we have like 2 or 3 people showing interest in it, if I believe, so far.
Hoping we can get it to some local folks. That'd be great.
Okay. All right. This time we're going to open for public hearing. Do we have any speakers?
No, Mr. Mayor.
All right. This time we're going to close public hearing. Any other comments or questions from council? Is there a motion?
So moved. Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Move to item F1.
Good evening. This next item is requesting the approval of the preliminary engineer's report for the levy and collection of the assessment of the Landscape and Lighting District 93-1. On May 1st, 2017, the City Council approved the annual renewal for the levy and collection of the annual assessment for the Landscape and Lighting District and ordered the city engineer to prepare and file the required special report for fiscal year 2017-2018. Staff has prepared the preliminary district report, which consists of engineer's report, budget, collection roll, boundary diagram, and resolution for the council for consideration.
Okay. Is there any questions from council? No questions? Do we have any speaker cards?
No, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We'll move to item F2. At this point, I'm going to recuse myself. I have a working relationship with Chispa Affordable Housing. I'm going to pass the gavel to Vice Mayor Clower.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and council members. The item you have before you is a resolution authorizing $300,000 in additional funds for the Line Street Senior Housing Apartment Project. On March 20th, 2017, Chispa was selected for the use of $700,000 from the city's housing successor low and moderate income housing asset fund for their 49-unit apartment project. In addition to the $700,000 from the city, Chispa's funding plan identified Section 8 vouchers and tax credits as other sources of funds in order to complete the project. On April 11th, 2017, Chispa was granted 48 Section 8 vouchers from the Santa Cruz Housing Authority, and Chispa will be applying for the tax credits for this project this June. The award of tax credits from the California Tax Credit Allocation Committee is a highly competitive application, and the strongest application usually comes out on top. A strong application consists of multiple parts, one being the maximum amount of community funding as possible. Chispa is seeking $300,000 in additional funds to ensure their application with the California Tax Credit Allocation Committee is as strong as possible, with supplemental funding that can be leveraged with the application for a potential tiebreaker scoring. The additional $300,000 in funding is conditional upon receipt of the before-mentioned tax credits. And Dana Cleary is here from Chispa to answer any questions regarding the tax credit process.
Thank you, Tricia. Any questions from the council?
Fund 851, where is that funded from?
That's our former successor agency, low moderate housing fund. The former redevelopment agency set aside, so to speak.
I just wondered where the money came from.
Not general fund.
How much money is in that fund now that we've allocated the $700,000?
Oh, we should have gave us this earlier.
Thanks, Trish. All right. So that's our bottom number.
The bottom number. So right now we have in the 17-18 column, the current is $2,358,000, and then we estimated about a little over $2 million, and we got word from finance that that's pretty much after we spend the money that we have budgeted this year, that's where we'll be at. The $700 that Chispa was granted is taken out, and then the bottom number is if you guys allow them for the next $300,000. So by 18-19, we'll be at a little over $500,000.
Is there a time limit on this? Mary, you probably
Mary
know more
knows.
about this. I mean, do we have to allocate
The
these
critical
funds?
year is 2019, that fiscal year, and there's two thresholds that we would need to meet. One of them is we can't have a fund balance. Well, if our fund balance is more than $1 million, then there's penalties on expenditure. That's called the excess surplus. And then the other is we will be reporting annually. We have been, and we have to spend at least 30% of our funds on extremely low-income rental housing. So one of the reasons we issued the RFP earlier this year for $700,000 was to be sure that we meet that target.
Okay.
So essentially they added strings to the money that was our, as Bill said, our housing fund is a redevelopment agency. The legislature did, and part of it is they don't want us to just hold on to that money. The city sees a need for holding on to it for monitoring because we have hundreds of homes to monitor. But they're also wanting us to build rental, extremely low-income
At
housing.
least they're not taking it away.
Councilmember Luna?
So is there a possibility of that $300,000 being returned to the city of Hollister?
If I understand it, if they, CHISPA is not granted the tax credits, then we never give the $300,000.
So if it's not granted?
Correct.
Also, the loan would be, say, within our recent lifetime as a city, we wouldn't see the money. It would be a 55-year loan with 3% interest.
Mary, what happens when the money gets paid back 55 years from now? Then what do you do with the money? Because if we have to spend it,
you're the only one that's going to be.
I think you need a crystal ball.
Thanks, Bill.
It probably, if there is such a thing as a housing fund and the legislature requires that it be reinvested in affordable housing, is most likely what would be the thing that would happen.
Okay. So it would have the same purpose, most likely.
Yeah.
Daisy will be the mayor. She can get through it.
Any other questions before public input?
There are no speakers, Vice Mayor.
Okay, we'll bring it back. Is there a motion?
Yes, so moved.
There's a motion. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries 4-0. 1.
Okay, we'll move on to item F3.
Good evening. Before you is a resolution authorizing the City of Hollister to utilize the California Statewide Communities Development Authority, otherwise known as the CSCDA, to form a Community Facilities District, a CFD, within the city to finance improvements and fees relative to the West of Fairview project, which is a very big and important project within the City of Hollister. Quick department summary. The West of Fairview project consists of 118 acres with 577 single-family homes, 100 multifamily home units, and 4.5 acres of park space. Beginning in 2018, the project is expected to have an 8-year absorption rate. Pursuant to the development agreement, the city has agreed to cooperate in the formation of a CFD to finance project improvements. The development agreement includes the following language. The developer may desire to initiate assessment or community facilities district proceedings to finance of all or portions of the design, acquisition, and construction costs required to be paid for improvements to be designed and constructed pursuant to the components. The city shall diligently process such application. It goes on to state that it goes on to confirm that the developer has the right to proceed under the Melrose Community Facilities Act of 1982. At the April 17th, 2017 City Council meeting, Mayor Velasquez requested of staff to have a second opinion of the development agreement. In attendance tonight is our city attorney who will discuss the legal opinion, as well as our city engineer to talk about the CFD, and Mike Whipple from DFA to further talk about the CFD as he is the expert in the field.
Yes. So the city attorney requested a second opinion pursuant to the mayor's direction. We obtained that from the law firm of Burke, Williams, and Sorensen, and that document confirmed the prior city attorney's opinion with regards to the duties and responsibilities of the city to cooperate in the event that the developer decided to go the route of petitioning for a CFD, which is the case and which is the right that they have under the agreement. That in a nutshell is the opinion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So essentially, what this CFD will do is allow the developer to finance the infrastructure improvements required of this particular phase of the Award Homes project. There will be many processes. What this item will do will give us the ability and direct staff to work with the developer to enter into and develop the CFD for this public infrastructure. The infrastructure, this particular one is talked about Phase 1A and 1B, which essentially the west portion, all that's the area between south of Union Road down to its project limits. Again, this project is 677 total units. 100 of those are multifamily units, and it includes a park. So all this document really, is what's necessary for this CFD to start. The total improvements we have in the staff report. There's acquisition improvements, and those are improvements that will be dedicated to the city once everything's done. And there's various budgeted amounts, but to cut to the chase, the total budgeted amount, and that includes construction, resident engineering, materials testing. It includes the engineering, design, planning, construction, staking, material testing, coordination, and a construction contingency will be included. All streets and bridge improvements, including widening, paving and or repaving, striping and or restriping, pedestrian sidewalks, and other related improvements or appurtenances and utilities located within the public rights of way are also included in this number, and it's just a little over $16,500,000 of improvements that's required for this first phase. So, Mike Whipple is here, and Michael Hindley is here with to talk more about specifics, more detail of how the CFD will be created, and possibly of timelines, and answer any questions you may have. We're all here to answer any questions that council may have regarding this project. So,
did anyone have any questions?
Any questions?
Yes. Vice Mayor Clower.
Who wrote the agreement?
I understand that the agreement was entered into back in 2000. I don't know who wrote it.
Not the development agreement.
Okay.
This agreement for the CFD, because I'm just trying to get it's not the easiest thing in the world to read and understand. So we got tripped up on something that was easy to understand in a development agreement 15 years ago. I just want to make sure everybody's kind of aware of what's going on in this one and who decided on the language, because I have an issue with a very simple section, number 4, which I'll get to in a little bit, which I have a lot of issue with the language. So I'm just wondering who wrote it. Is it boilerplate? Is it the standard one that this company uses for the CFD?
Mayor, council members, Mike Whipple with DFA. I'm guessing that you're talking about the JCFA that's identified. The JCFA was provided by James Hamill at CSCDA. He's the executive director of CSCDA, and that is their standard.
So it's a
standard document. And the acquisition agreement, which is attached to the JCFA, that's just their standard form that their CSCDA board has approved.
Okay.
And there may be the ability to make amendments based on council and staff feedback.
Okay. Thank you. Was the answer I was hoping.
Okay.
Councilmember, you have another question?
I can look back around.
Councilmember Gilliel.
Just quickly, I think somebody alluded to it already. How long has this project been in the works?
Well, the development agreement, I think, was entered into 2000, and I don't know how long it was processed before that, but maybe staff could answer that question.
I think the original development agreement was 1992, and it had subsequent amendments and or settlement agreements that came after that, but it's been around since the early 90s.
I heard the discussion on May 1st. It was actually the meeting that you appointed me to the council, and one of the things that came up were, did we do the research to find out how many more of these agreements are out there, or are there any potentials coming down the road in the future of these similar CFDs with payback for infrastructure? I guess that would be to you, Mr.
Yeah,
City Manager.
I don't mind answering it. No, the West of Fairview Development Agreement is essentially the only agreement that the City of Hollister has that's a true development agreement. We have a performance agreement with another developer, but it doesn't contemplate any special finances as it relates to CFDs or community facilities districts. I'm sorry.
So for layman's terms, in the future, other than public safety and the parks and facilities that we have now, we shouldn't see any more of these coming up.
That is correct. Or, forgive me if I can back up just a little bit. The council did allow us an avenue to use the SKIP program for commercial and industrial projects when it's appropriate, but no single family.
I was thinking residential.
Correct.
Okay.
Vice Mayor Clark.
Okay, so going back to section number 4, and it may be a little petty, but it reads that this is the best thing for the citizens and customers of Hollister and future citizens and customers of Hollister. I don't believe that, so if this is going to go forward, I'm not going to. That's got to get out of there. That's pretty simple. I think everybody else can understand. There's not really a question in that statement. I do have a question on section 2.03, which is page C7 on 337 of 445 of the agenda packet. Sale of acquisition improvements. The language is a little different than I've seen in the past. It says the developer agrees to sell to the local agency each acquisition improvement to be constructed by developer. I thought we usually just accept as opposed to buy. Is it the same thing?
Well, the CFD would be acquiring through a sale. So it's an acquisition agreement, an acquisition district. So the CFD is actually purchasing the improvements.
So the local agency in this case is the CFD and not the city?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there
You accept the facilities.
That's what I was hoping.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any other questions? Council?
One more comment, Mr. Mayor, if you're done.
Councilor Gilio?
This was also brought up in the May 1st meeting, but any extra disclosures would be greatly appreciated. I talked to the city manager about this to see if there's anything that the city can do additionally to ensure that, as Councilmember Clower mentioned on May 1st, a lot of people are signing a lot of documents when they're buying houses, and they may not understand this additional tax. So if there's anything that we can do to help them understand this tax, I'd like to see if we can do that.
Well, one of the things that may be beneficial is on the website. You could post under the finance department the CFDs that you do have. I know there's an annual report that's done for CFD2 and CFD4 that could be posted on the website so homeowners or potential buyers could download that information to understand exactly what's being paid for. I've seen other jurisdictions where maybe they post sample notices of special tax, so a home buyer could see what that is for those individual CFDs as well. So it all depends on how much information you want to disclose and make available on your website.
Vice Mayor Clark?
City Attorney Diaz.
Yes.
Are you comfortable with the language in the agreement after reviewing it and understanding kind of where we're at legally?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it satisfies the standard requirements that are used in these types of agreements, and it establishes the process by which the city can proceed if the city decides to accept the petition to form the new CFD.
Okay. And Mr. Rubchik, are you comfortable with the language? Because this really involves you in a lot of areas.
Yeah, I was looking at the agreement, at the documents, and a lot of the where the local agency engineer is involved is regarding the financial aspects and paying back or releasing funds and such. But as I looked at this and as I read it, yes, I am satisfied with it.
Thank you.
Okay. No other questions from council? Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Marty Richmond.
I have a specific question, which I'll take the answer after, and I have a general comment. So my specific question is the agreement complete enough to cover our administrative costs? If we were doing this ourselves, just doing it, we would be racking up administrative fees because as we sit here and speak, we can't do anything for nothing. It just doesn't work like that. And we've all seen the kind of administrative fees that happened at the RDA when we had to have meetings and meetings and meetings about what we're going to do. So I'll take that answer sitting down. Now here's my general comment. For years I've been coming up here, long before this bucket dropped, and said there's a real danger in giving away allocations and authorities and making agreements and not putting any kind of use it or lose it provision in there. And I've had many members of the council, nobody in particular I'm pointing at, and many members of the staff tell me, well, that's just the way things are done. Well, the world changes a lot. If this was started in 1992, we're sitting here in 2017, and it's a different world. It's a different world financially. It's a different world legally, responsibility-wise, who gets sued, when they get sued. And, you know, I've stood here and listened to people say, oh, we don't build apartments because there's too many lawsuits. You've heard that yourself. We can't get insurance because there's too many lawsuits on when you build apartments. So things change. I think we're foolish to keep signing agreements that may not come to fruition for 15 years. We're foolish in two aspects. One is the world changes, and that agreement is locked in stone. If there's something there to the disadvantage of the developer, as a business person, they just walk away from it. But if there's something in there the disadvantage to us, they're going to implement it. So that's just human nature. And the second item is that without a use it or lose it provision in the future, what you're going to have is exactly what you'll have now. Years of starvation with nobody building anything. And then all of a sudden everybody building everything on the same day, in which case it's impossible to catch up on the impacts. And even if you can, you don't have the experience of the years of seeing how those impact mitigations work. You know, the impact theory is one thing. Impact facts are another. So you theorize, oh, I'll build this road network, and that'll take care of it, and you find out it doesn't work. Well, if you do it gradually, you can switch over and do something else. If you do it all at once, you can't. So we need to change our philosophy for the future. This is not anything to do with the past, because the past is done. But this specifically shows exactly what goes on if you do not get a new philosophy. And that philosophy is, if we want to grow at a certain rate, we manage that rate. And we make sure that people who want to develop understand, if you want to develop here, you meet that rate. And I don't say that with the intention of freezing anybody out. I see it with the intention of smoothing out our ability to absorb the ups and downs of what happens every day. We're at the tip of the whip. Everybody knows what that crack is when you flip the whip. That's the tip that goes through the sound barrier and goes crack, even though all you do is move the handle. We're at the tip of the whip because we're always the first down when the economy sinks, and we're the last up when it comes up. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Are there any other speaker cards?
There are no more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Is there any other questions or comments from council?
Okay, to answer Marty's question, in the staff report under Human Resources, it says, quote, formation and ongoing administration tasks will be provided by CSCDA staff and consultants. City staff will be responsible only for reviewing and accepting public improvements financed by the CFD and administrating the city's impact fee program. That's reviewing and accepting public improvements. That's all taken care of by engineering plan check and inspection fees, and the city impact fee program pays for the impacts that this project has been ready and willing to pay in accordance with the development agreement. So, as I understand it, it's going to be very minimal impact to city staff once it's established and once everything is in place.
Thank you very much. Okay. Do we have any other questions? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2017-123 with the amendment that Section 4 is removed.
Okay. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
I'd like to add on to Councilmember Clower's motion that we provide as much notice as possible to potential new homeowners.
Okay, there's a motion and a second with a couple of changes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Aye. Motion. I'm sorry? Aye in favor, correct? Yeah, motion carries 3-2 vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item F4.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm going to ask Christina if she could please open up the PowerPoint, if she be so kind to do so, please. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Good evening. This item is requesting approval of a resolution directing staff to submit an application to LAFCO asking to amend the city's sphere of influence to encompass the properties identified in Exhibit A of the attached resolution in your packets and also identified in the map in the screen in the kind of brownish off orange color. The properties are located south of Southside Road, to the east of San Benito Street Extension, and to the west of Airline Highway, and consist of 17 parcels in the subdivision commonly known as Riverside Estates, more towards the south of the project site, for a total of 74 parcels totaling approximately 276 acres. The properties are outside of the city limits, outside of the sphere of influence, they're outside of the general planning area, but they are within the city's urban service area. On October 3rd, 2011, the City Council reviewed and accepted, per Resolution Number 2011-129, the Program Environmental Impact Report for the Hollister Urban Area Water and Wastewater Master Plan, and found that it sufficiently analyzed the extension of the city's sewer service boundary to support an application to LAFCO to amend its service boundary. As you can see on the screen, and also as part of Attachment B in your transmittal, the urban service area map with the boundaries in the red color. The Hollister Urban Area Environmental Impact Report analyzed the city's ability to provide services, that's more of the zoom in to the area, to provide services to the Hollister Urban Area. The parcels being proposed for the request to LAFCO to expand its sphere of influence are all within the Hollister Urban Area. They're all with the little check marks between Southside Road and Union and Southside Road. The Hollister Urban Area EIR anticipated development of the project area, and it was adopted in 2000 area. And so back then in 2011, area were rural residential, which allowed up to 2 units per acre, 20 units per acre, and ag productive in 2011. Since then, as a general plan, and now the area is 20 units per acre on the project's direction to. And based on the analysis and the environmental checklist in your packets, the Hollister Urban Area. In addition, development entitlements for their properties, additional CEQA requirements going to be in the form of an either report. The City of Hollister City Council adopted resolution number 2015-136 and also resolution number 2015-179 back in 2015 in October and in July, which basically allowed for out-of-jurisdiction service to 5 properties within the project site area being considered for tonight. And however, in order for LAFCO to take action on whether to approve out-of-jurisdiction services to the subject properties shall first be within the city's sphere of influence, which they are currently are not. So pending the City Council's approval of this item, the city will begin to process an amendment to the city's general plan so that the sphere of influence boundary encompasses the project's parcels. The city will go through all the public hearings required with the Planning Commission and your City Council for the general plan amendment. In addition, properties within the sphere of influence seeking city sewer will have to come before you to ask for out-of-jurisdiction service requests, and one of the requirements that the city and LAFCO has for out-of-jurisdiction service is that an agreement be signed with the property owner and the City of Hollister, basically saying that if the city and LAFCO agree to provide services, that even though we're not requiring annexation of the territory at this time, in the future, if the City of Hollister desires to annex the property owner or his or her successor will not protest the annexation of the property. So that's one of the incentives or one of the positives of having this area within the sphere of influence. Also, additionally, the city can comment on properties being processed in the county for development within the sphere of influence to require the developer to plan in accordance to city standards. So, being within the sphere of influence, if at that point the city can comment and indicate that because the sphere of influence is a special benchmark for the city, where a city eventually will be annexing or expanding, the city would likely require that the development be developed per city standards, even though it would be within the county's jurisdiction. With this, staff recommends that the City Council adopts Resolution 2017-124, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Hollister directing staff to submit an application to LAFCO asking to amend the city's sphere of influence encompassing the properties identified in Exhibit A of the attached resolution and include assessor parcel number 020320007 as seen on the screen to the list. Are there any questions for staff?
Vice Mayor Clara.
Abraham, how come the other parcels along Union Road aren't included in this?
Good question, Vice Mayor Clara. These properties are the properties on the off orange color are the ones that are included at this time, which is about it's the Riverside Estates project or development, and another additional 17 properties for a total of 74. And at this time, the other 17 parcels that are away from the Riverside Estates property are currently working with the County of San Benito for potential entitlements for their property. So at this time, they are the ones that are mostly interested in coming into the city of Hollister. I mean, for services to the city from the city of Hollister.
Okay, but if we know the Hollister urban area service area includes the other ones, why not include the other ones now and save some effort later on?
That's a good point, Councilmember Clower, and that can be done at this time. The request is to have direction from the City Council to apply to submit an application to LAFCO for these properties. However, eventually we will come before you with the required public hearings for an actual general plan amendment. And the general plan amendment is required in order for the city to basically indicate that this is where the sphere of influence is now, and this is where we want to move it. At this time, these parcels are the ones that are being considered because these are the ones that are, in a way, have some type of application in to the county. except for the Riverside Estates development, because that's already existing. So we just kind of went on your point to just include those, might as well, with this request. But eventually, either with a separate application or separate process, or maybe fold it in with the general plan update, we will also consider the rest of the areas where the city should expand to for the sphere of influence.
Is it possible for the council to make a motion to recommend the parcels both north and south of Union Road to be included in this batch to LAFCO?
Yes, that is an option if the city council so desires.
Do we have we done any work in setting our zoning designation for these parcels?
That's a good question, Councilman McClower. We normally, when the way that we do that is through the general plan process, and our last general plan or our current general plan is from 2005 all the way to 2023. And general plan has our land use designation area within the city limits, within the sphere of influence, and within the planning area. However, this area here, it's outside of those three boundaries. It's just within the urban service area, so we have not technically identified most of the area. Some of the area, like along Airline Highway and outside of the city limits, has been contemplated in the future if it were to get annexed as some residential and some commercial, mostly mixed use. But most of the area, no, with the exception of the Riverside Estates, which obviously it's residential. So that's the contemplation, residential. In the general plan update that we have scheduled, that's what we're hoping to designate, do land use designations for those areas.
Does it make more sense to spend some time and thought on this as the part of the planning area before bringing it into the sphere of influence?
For this particular area, I mean, it's always good to plan things out. These areas have been already in the process of within the county's jurisdiction, being contemplated for residential. So at this time, we can pursue with that, and the rest of the area we can hold off on for the general plan update if that's a desire of the council. But it's up to the council in this particular case.
Mr. Mayor, if I may address some issues just with regards to the process. Assuming that the City Council decides to approve the application, prior to you actually submitting the application that LAFCO will provide to expand the city's sphere of influence, there's a government code mandate, a statute that requires the city to sit down first and try to iron out the application and the land that the city wants to amend and update its sphere of influence on with the county. So that's a requirement. Now, that doesn't mean that you and the county may agree or may not agree. If you agree, then it's easier to submit that application to LAFCO. You got to remember that LAFCO is the sole jurisdiction that determines what the city's, any amendment, if you will, or any changes to the city's sphere of influence. They're the sole acting agency that will make that determination. So what we're doing here today is basically just authorizing staff to submit that application based on the changes which are consistent. The other thing you have to make a that you should realize that a sphere of influence is basically a plan for just the probable physical boundary and service area of a local government, as determined, and this is key, not by you, but by LAFCO. Ultimately, it's LAFCO again that makes that determination. Then the last thing that you should realize is that sphere of influences. The city for the city to annex any property, it first must be within the city's sphere of influence. So in the future, if that's what the city wants to do with any property, first it's got to meet that requirement to be within the sphere of influence, geographical area. Again, it's LAFCO. So this is sort of a LAFCO-driven type of proceeding. And then once the LAFCO approves, then that's where you come back in and you update your general amendment accordingly and re-identify your sphere of influence. the geographical boundaries, that is.
Vice Mayor Clark.
So is the conflict on this whole thing that our sphere of influence, by the way you just explained it, does not match up with our service area for the Hollister urban area?
That is partially correct.
Okay, what's the other part of it?
Well, it would seem that a portion of the development project that's anticipated is not within the city's sphere of influence. And so that needs to be brought in within the city's sphere of influence.
Before they can legally...
Before the city could annex anything. Exactly.
Okay, so let's say that there's no plan to annex whatever's been approved by the county. But we said, imagine this is how it is, I think this is what the situation is. We said we'd provide sewer, but now we can't. Unless we do this.
Well, again, it's an application. That's a negotiation process with the county. But you got to remember, the city has within its inherent right to apply to LAFCO to expand or reduce, for that matter, its sphere of influence, depending on what the city's needs are. And there's certain factors that LAFCO will take into consideration, and so those are set forth in the application process. So and that's why I think I wanted you to realize that before you actually do that with LAFCO is you have to sit down with the county, because it's anticipated to try to work a deal. So that's where you can try to work a deal with the county and see if you can reach some kind of agreement on the land in question.
I think also, and correct me if I'm wrong, sir, I mean, part of the other equation or question was, and Abraham and I have sat through a few LAFCO meetings, and it appears that the current executive director will not allow the city, or will not allow LAFCO to approve any outside jurisdictions to properties who are not within the city's sphere of influence. That seems to be the latest sort of determination that he has made. Is that correct?
That is correct. And so if the properties are within the sphere of influence, but not annexed by LAFCO or not being requested to be annexed by the city council, then there will be, but services can be provided if the city desire to provide outside jurisdiction service. As long as they're within the sphere of influence, there can be an agreement that's made. LAFCO will not approve them without an agreement, basically indicating that if the city agrees, we will serve. However, if the city desires to annex you in the future, you will not protest the annexation. You would be able to come in.
A few questions.
Councilmember Gillio.
Oh, sir. Thank you. I went back and I reviewed the general plan, and I've heard you mention it doesn't seem to line up with our general plan from 2005 to 2023. That's one comment, and you've already answered that question. And two, what is the urgency to do this now? Are we acting a little prematurely? Is there an urgency to do it now before we actually update our general plan and just study it and do it all at once and get it all done right at the right time? And three, is there any liability with taking on Riverside Estates in the current conditions? Are those roads city width, and have we done the studies on that? Are they going to comply with all our city ordinances and codes?
Thank you, Councilman Gillio. Yeah, the urgency, really, there's no urgency. The request, though, is to bring it in because of some of the applicants that are working with the county right now in getting entitlements for development on some of these properties, some of which the county, the city has already approved for outside jurisdiction, 5 parcels. But that's essentially what's bringing this before you today. That they are not within the city's sphere of influence, and in order for that, for the applicants to be able to apply for outside jurisdiction from LAFCO, they require to be within the city's sphere of influence. So that's what it is on the urgency matter for this. And 3, the liability part, I think Soren could probably answer a little bit better, but this is for the sphere of influence only. This is not for annexation of the territory, just to expand the sphere of influence. And later, in order for annexations to occur, that requires a separate action.
It seems like this is always a precursor to annexation.
That's
so
correct.
We should probably study this and know what we're getting into before we start this process, because down the road, maybe we're not all here. Somebody's going to say, hey, they expanded the sphere of influence. They must have wanted it annexed. So I think we should study that and see what's out there.
Yeah, one thing that I'll observe, I think, is that just on a timely basis, it's really a good practice for the city to review its current sphere of influence geographic locations and update them accordingly to what they envision as something probable in the future with regards to what they envision their new property lines to be. So it's something that you should regularly update or look into updating.
Councilmember Friend?
Well, I want to continue on with what Councilman Gillio says. I think it's premature. We have a general plan update scheduled. That's when the community is going to tell us what they want to see in the general plan, which we are not following now, because the sphere of influence, if I remember right, says the concentration will be on infill projects. We're not doing infill projects, and Jim's right. 6 months from now, we're going to be looking at annexation if we do this, because they're already spending their money and giving the county the money to do this, and we're not going to see any of it. And then they're going to come and say, well, we want to annex in. You expanded your sphere of influence. I think we should hold off until we have the community help us review the general plan and stick with it. If the general plan update says that should happen, then that's what the community wants to do. I don't have a problem with that. But I think right now is the wrong time to do that.
If I can, just give me two minutes, and I think most of us concur. I want to make sure that we're all aware of some of the actions that have already occurred that put us kind of in an awkward spot. One is that the city currently already serves Riverview Estates, and has been doing that for the last 26, 7, 8 years, or whatever it's been. The city has also taken action on saying yes to outside jurisdictions for some parcels that have received entitlements through the county. That's another critical piece of information that I think you folks need to have. Again, under a different executive director, former LAFCO agencies, or under former management. However, there are developers that believe that they have an entitlement now that is valid and ready to go. I think, and again, thirdly, I understand what everybody is sort of saying here at the same time, and one of the things that is a little bit even frustrating for us on our end is sort of going down these paths of I don't want to say necessarily the rules change as we go, but they certainly have changed as we've gone along. It was never our intent to put us in this sort of a situation at all, but I do believe that part of the I think it is true what Abraham is saying, that we probably need to at least start the general plan amendment process, take a look at those things. I think as one of the councilmen had a discussion with me about sort of the Union Corridor and its importance to this community as a kind of as a future traffic thoroughfare, for lack of a better term, and having the city, even though, again, to Mr. Gillio's fact, even though it may not ever become the city of Hollister, so to speak, in its jurisdiction, having you folks have the opportunity to comment on development that may take place in the county is probably something that's pretty important to you as they move forward. Again, sphere of influence doesn't necessarily mean annexation. It just merely means that you have the opportunity to comment on projects that get constructed along that in that particular area. Is that it? Okay. That was my last. I'll shut up now.
Okay, Councilmember Luna.
I noticed that in the sphere of influence boundary, I'm just going to say that about Riverview. The city has been servicing the sewer in that area for many years now.
That's correct.
And so there must have been an agreement. There had to have been an agreement with the city of Hollister to go directly to that area, even if it's within the county.
Correct.
So, but I see where it's not included in this area, in the area there. And I think that's what Councilmember Clower was saying, to be more inclusive if something like this is going to happen or planned.
I said I was going to be quiet, and I apologize because I'm not. There's another very important piece of this puzzle. This area that you're looking at right now is primarily in Sunny Slope County Water Districts. It's in their area of serving potable water. They went through an annexation about a year or two ago, I guess it's been. One of the things that they didn't do is actually annex that area into their sewer system. It was only for water. And the reason why they didn't do that is because that you have an agreement with Sunny Slope County Water District, the San Benito County Water District, and the County of San Benito that you would treat the effluent that's coming from that area. So the Sunny Slope never even contemplated that in their annexation process because it was already sort of decided way back when that we're not going to provide sewer. It's going to the city system. The line is already there, and there's no sense in pumping it uphill. So I think that's another key piece to this puzzle because as the general manager at Sunny Slope said, yes, we knowingly did not annex into that because we knew that that wasn't going to be a service that we were going to provide any of the property in that particular area. So.
Councilman Gilliam?
Yeah, I was wondering, since we have the experts here, if we could kind of compare and contrast this area to Santana Ranch, because our sphere of influence, as I understand it, doesn't cover Santana Ranch now, but they're able to still make a development, connect to the sewer, no problem. So I'm kind of trying to figure out the differences.
The standard answer that we get is different day.
Let me add.
Is that from LAFCO or?
Yeah.
Let me add to some of the conversation. I am the member of LAFCO, and what's going on now is the director is pointing out state law prohibits a city from providing services to an area outside the sphere of influence. And currently, we could not legally provide those services unless we change the boundaries of the sphere of influence. In the past, there was a different opinion on that, and services were provided to the development you're talking about without us having the influence we should have had over that project. I've heard a lot of great comments from the council members here. I understand and I do appreciate the effort for us to have some influence over these areas, but I think it's probably wiser to step back, get a better understanding of what we're trying to accomplish, because we do need that general plan update within the city. We do need to know what we want our community to look like. And if we don't know that, how are we going to tell the county what we want for the future if they're going to move forward on development? Right now, if we provide or we change the sphere, we're going to be inundated with requests to provide those services as the county sees their current or our vision currently and what they're seeing. I think this is a moment where we do need a lot more community input. I think actually we need to probably expand those boundaries around the entire city, and we do have to have those conversations with the county. As I pointed out before, I think the growth should be happening within the city. Not, county, we need to go back to rural. It's kind of funny to see rural 20 units in an acre. That doesn't make any sense. The law is pretty clear, according to the current director, of what we can provide services to. Right now, we're not allowed to do that, and I think we should step back, have a in-depth conversation amongst the council, the county, and the public to understand what we're trying to accomplish before we make these changes. But I do think it's very important we do make the changes. I just think we need to give ourselves some more time to do it right, figure out what we're trying to accomplish, so we stop, or we make better neighborhoods, a better community before we move too far forward.
Point well taken.
Vice Mayor Clark?
City Attorney Diaz, do we put the city in a legal situation by already saying that we would provide service? And I'm kind of torn on it because I tend to agree with everybody. The general plan update is so close that it's right around the corner. But at the same time, I don't want us to get in a situation where we've left ourselves open legally? Because we've said yes, and now we're kind of saying, well, maybe later.
Yeah, there's a potential that the city would be putting itself at risk for liability.
Like Billy said, different day.
I think there's always a potential for liability. And I think this is the chance for all of us to sit down and have a conversation what we're trying to accomplish. I don't understand the rush from the county to build hundreds, if not thousands, of homes in that area right now. I think if we plan it well together, we could make sense of it. But I think we should take the time to do it right and have some additional meetings and move towards the general plan amendment and correcting some of the sphere of influence throughout the city.
Very well.
Is there any other comments from council? Councilmember Luna?
What is the time frame or on the general plan update?
For the general plan update, council, we're hoping that within this month we will have a summary of the items that we're going to want to have. As you know, the 2005 general plan that we currently work from is very progressive. There was a lot of detail in it, and there was a lot of good work that was done on it. It was adopted in 2005, and during that time there was a moratorium, for building moratorium, and in 2008, December 2008, as you know, the building moratorium lifted, and during that time there was a recession, a big recession throughout the state. So there hasn't, where I'm going at is that since then there was just a little bit of development going along. I think the biggest year was last year at 143 units, residential units. And so there hasn't been a lot of implementation on it because there hasn't been a lot of activity. We're starting to see now a lot of residential now, but because of that, we think that really the existing general plan is going to serve as a great template. There might not be a lot of changes to the existing general plan. There are some state requirements that have changed that we have to implement, like a social justice element that is now required by cities. So we're going to require that. So with that, generally, we're hoping to have a goal of 2 years of having starting in May, and hopefully within 2 years. It's an aggressive goal. Other cities can tell you that usually, it takes years. We have the county of San Benito as an example. Just got adopted last year or 2 years ago, and the years that they took. But we're hoping that because of our current general plans, very progressive. We have you guys, this council just adopted a housing element last year. Housing element is every five years. You just adopted one this last year. So we probably don't have to do anything on the housing element, maybe just some minor work, which is great. So that's our goal within a year and a half to 2 years.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Marty Richmond.
I rise to say something nice about the city council. I think you guys, the old joke about when I was 17, my dad didn't know anything, and by the time I was 21, I figured out he learned a lot in 4 years. Well, you really showed some maturity, I think, as a council on this by saying, wait a minute, let's not make a bad situation worse. This is terrible as it stands. All you have to do is just look at the map. Just look at that map. And nobody in their right mind would say, well, obviously Hollister wants to build out in that direction. Okay. I mean, you look at the city, we're not building out in that direction. This is all being forced by the ruling that you have to have them in the sphere of influence to service them with the wastewater plant. That's all that's involved here. Because here's the danger. And the danger is exactly what's happening, which is the county will have all of these items built to their specifications and their wants and needs, and then we'll be stuck with trying to annex them in, and they won't meet any of the city requirements. So the first two things you need to do, in my opinion, is get a second legal opinion about the ruling of the LAFCO director, because everybody can read a law wrong. I don't know if he's right or wrong. I have no idea. But get a second opinion from the state, for God's sakes. The second thing is get a non-aggression pact in writing with the county saying, if we're putting stuff in our sphere of influence, we're going to tell you what it looks like. We're not going to let you decide what it looks like and then shove it into our sphere of influence so that we have to service, so we can service it with a wastewater plant and then ask us to annex it because a council member friend is perfectly right. I'm going to be dead before we do any of the infill fixes. Okay, that has been priority one from day one, and we do a little project of 4 houses or 5 houses a year typically. By the time I'm 150, if I'm still alive, maybe we'll be getting around to finishing the infill, which is a mess. So how can we be building out all over the place? Well, the reason is it was a political decision made, and they don't talk about it this way. It was a political decision made at the county that said, we're not going to build anything that's not around the city. You've heard it 100 times from the members of the county board of supervisors who say, cities are for people, the county is for cows. Okay? They've made the decision they're not going to allow any development unless it's right around the city, and that's why Santana Ranch is right next to the city and not in the sphere of influence. It's ridiculous. They're across the road. So you got to say no. You first of all find out if LAFCO, the best deal for us would be to say, this rule is crazy. We're going to service them with wastewater if we can, a wastewater process, and you can just keep them in the county. Second of all, we've got to see what the new tax sharing agreement looks like. Anybody remember that? When you annex something, what do? First thing you do under the old one is you gave up 75% of the property taxes. Here, take them. Okay, we'll take the houses, we'll take all the responsibility, we'll take all the costs, and here, you could have the property taxes because we're getting the big benefit of having all the responsibility and all the costs and all that. So that's crazy. And oh, by the way, if it's illegal to give them service, and we have an old agreement where we give them service, we're not going to turn the water off. We're not going to turn the sewer plant off. We're going to service them. So it's a crazy idea. This makes no sense at all because, as I think Council Member Clower brought up, the Union Road projects are marching ahead as fast as they can move, okay? And they're going to be closer to the city than this will. So when you look at the big map, it doesn't make any sense. I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other speaker cards?
Todd DeShure.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Todd Deutscher. I am the developer of the parcel that you see on that map above as number 3 on Southside Road. It's 3061 Southside Road. I'd like to add some factual information that would be helpful in your understanding and answering some of the questions that were raised by Councilman Guglio and Councilman Clower. First of all, the precipitous for this SOI, as I understand it, is in part because of resolutions 2015-136, of which I am the recipient from almost 2 years ago, where this council agreed to provide sewer service to my project, and subsequent I invested, and my partners invested significant funds in this development. The second thing I would point out is that Southside Road, north-south, already has existing infrastructure and sewer in it. It's providing service down at Riverview Estates. And we just completed a study with the city's sewer consultant, Wallace Group, as well as Pace Engineering and our civil engineers, McKay and Somps, to do the calculation for all of the upsizing of sewer and lift stations to convey effluent to the city's facility. Our decision to develop here was predicated on, one, the location of that sewer line, and two, the city's resolution to provide a will serve for us. I think that you'll note that that many of the properties that, in fact, all of the properties on this all touch that sewer line, and that in and of itself provides a logical extension. If you look at the Knox-Cortese Act, under which LAFCO is run, you'll see that the term urban service area and sphere of influence are generally synonymous. And right now, I think the action as put forward by staff is to try and, in great part, reconcile those two boundaries. I would also point out, of course, that a sphere of influence does not mean that annexation has to occur anytime it is not at the pleasure of the council. So while the sphere of influence may be amended so that the service area and the sphere are basically aligned, it does not mean that you'll be forced to annex properties in under what the previous speaker said were unfair sharing agreements and things like that. I would also encourage anyone on staff, if they would like to review the significant amount of plans and standards that we have. I think they meet or exceed those standards put forth by the city in terms of development, curbs, et cetera, such that it would not be burdensome any more than any other property within the current sphere. I would point out further that there's a difference between the general plan amendment and a general plan update. We've been talking about as a general plan amendment here, not a general plan update. General plan amendments are generally done by cities 2 or 3 times a year. General plan updates every 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, et cetera. Finally, I would say that we started this project, 3 years ago, and we put a lot into it based on an understanding that we had. LAFCO changed.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
There are no more speakers, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from Councilman Gilio?
Yeah, obviously I wasn't here 3 years ago. I wasn't here 2 weeks ago. If possible, can we find out, or if you have it now, if not, maybe we need to come back in a couple weeks and figure it out. But I'd like to see the approval that this gentleman was speaking about for number 3 in the sewer system, and see what that looks like in the resolution that the council back then approved.
Yes, the resolution essentially was to adopt the resolution essentially applying to LAFCO for outside jurisdiction sewer for the property. At that time,
would that be similar to the Santana Ranch project? Is what we did for that project?
Correct.
We didn't agree to expand our sphere of influence.
Correct.
3 years ago.
Even though the sphere of influence, even though the property is not within the sphere of influence, that was agreed upon to provide sewer service. At that time, it wasn't with the previous executive director from LAFCO. It was not required that it had to be that the property had to be within the sphere of influence. Otherwise, that would have been, we wouldn't have gone through the process of the outside jurisdiction first. We would have gone through the process of sphere of influence first, or concurrently. But the previous executive officer did not have that requirement. He just allowed.
Yeah, there's obviously a fairness problem there. We need to maybe get together with LAFCO or check and see if we're LAFCO is reviewing the policy right. I don't know if there's an appeal process. I'm speaking out of naivety, but there's obviously a fairness issue here that we need to address.
Is that it? You know, I think the answer is taking our time, going back, doing this right. I do believe and I do agree there are some legal issues that need to be worked through to make sure that we are following the law, and that whether the law was in place at the time or not, we need to understand those issues before we move forward.
Correct.
Okay. At this time, is there? Go ahead.
No, and that's fine, Mr. Mayor. And yes, because we wanted to make sure. Normally, as you know, we just approved an expansion of the sphere of influence in December for the North Street property. That was the first time. I've been here 10 years in May. That was the first time in 10 years. And I think before that, it's probably been at least 25 years since the sphere of influence has expanded. And normally our process is, we go through the environmental report, we go through planning commission, then we come to city council, as we did for the North Street property. This is basically a similar procedure, but just backwards. We're recommending to LAFCO first, and then going through the process. But certainly we did not want to bring this before you without making sure that this was legally correct. This is just a different option, but just wanted to say that.
If I can make a recommendation to council, how about if we continue this to a meeting in August and get some of that legal information that we need so we can do this right, and any more information that would help us in this decision? Would that work with the other council members?
Yes.
Until when did you say?
And meet in August?
Is there a reason that it needs to take 3 months as opposed to
we're going
2
into
weeks?
June right now. We have July off.
I know, but we got an answer to the Award Homes question in a lot less time than 3 months.
I'd like to get LAFCO here also, the executive director, find out the legal reasoning behind it. I just think August would give us the time to do it. Do it right.
My guess is that the city attorney can probably call him and find out tomorrow morning why he's doing what he's doing. And you've been in every single meeting for LAFCO, so you could probably write it down and tell us too. I mean, I'm torn on this. I've said I don't think it's going to take 3 months to figure out why and get a second opinion, and I don't think that's fair to anybody else who's in this predicament that they wait 3 months to find out, most likely, that we're not going to do anything anyways.
Would you be good with June 19th?
That's fine.
June 19th? Work for everyone? All right, we'll continue. Is there a motion continue to June 19th?
So moved.
Motion, is there a second?
Can I add to that? Specifically, we're going to get an answer from LAFCO, or maybe a second opinion. I don't know if we can get an answer from LAFCO. Second opinion, and then also, what was the second part?
The reasoning?
Reasoning, yeah, exactly. And then if they can stay in the county, we'll know what what LAFCO says. And then I'd also like to go over the, obviously we can do this in our off time, but also at the meeting I'd like to talk about the prior resolution that the gentleman spoke of from 3 years ago, if we can bring that back from the next agenda.
Absolutely.
Right. So if there's a motion to move this to continue to June 19th. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. At this time, we'll move to reports from city council members regarding their committees. Councilmember Luna.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On Wednesday, the 10th of May, I attended the AMBAG meeting at the Marina Library. And that's my report.
Okay. Councilmember Friend.
Yes, I have 3 committee reports. First one is I attended the first meeting of the Monterey Bay Community Power Company, and we had our first meeting, swore in our officers, selected an interim chairman, Bruce McPherson, and went through the Conflict of Interest Code, rules and responsibilities for policy and operation board members, and we reviewed the project background, milestones, recommendations, guiding principles from the Project Development Advisory Committee, and set June 12th for the first meeting of the Operations Board, and July 10th, I believe it is, for the Policy Board, the next meeting. The other meeting I went to is San Bernardino County Intergovernmental Committee, and the big hitter on the agenda there was obviously the telecom communications, where we're asking for the respective boards to step up and allow people to work on the joint powers committee on the library. And the third meeting was the San Bernardino County Fire Protection Advisory Committee. Went through that with a staff report from the staff, an equipment report, an update on the station. And if you've watched the newspaper, you'll realize that the county is, for whatever reason, decided to make a change again on Station 3. Now they're hurting for money, so they're not going to build the full station. They're only going to build a station for 1 vehicle instead of 3. Is it 2 vehicles?
I believe it's 2.
So they're into their cost cutting, so that wasn't part of this committee's meeting. I don't know if they decided to do it. That's it, committees.
Okay. Vice Mayor Flower?
I have nothing to report.
Councilmember Gilliam?
Just a statement for city manager. We're going into a lot of RFPs and projects and things like that. I don't know if this has to be a council vote or unanimous vote, but I'd really like to see a preference for local workforce, labor inside the county, inside the city. Try to give as much work as we possible to our local folks. I don't know how much it's coming in from the outside versus local, but I'd really like to see that. That's all.
Isn't there a 5%?
That's on purchasing. So we just need to be clear as well, and I can respond a little bit, versus professional services, purchasing, and construction. So,
all right. I just wanted to expand on the conversation about the TEL Center with the intergovernmental. The idea is to get a task force comprising of city, county, Hollister School District, San Benito High School District, the library group, a few of the other larger school districts, as many groups as possible to really get an idea of what we're trying to accomplish here, because together we can really make something that will change this community and give us the facilities we desperately need. So, and I wanted to also thank the fire department on the last committee meeting. The reports presented that day were excellent, and we are definitely on the right track to get the information we need to understand some of the issues. So I want to thank the fire department for that update. Let's go over. City manager? Oh, we'll go to informational reports. Sorry about that. Councilmember Luna?
Just a short report that I attended the concert at the park in Calaveras School, and I'm glad that somebody showed up tonight here to report on how well that, the gazebo looks. It was very clean. Electrical all worked, so it was nice to sit there and hear the music with a lot of families that came out with their children, and I think that's something that maybe the city should be thinking in regards to other parks. I know that Dunn Park on Saturday, I think it was, or Sunday, where they had music at the park, and that was very nice as well. So I'm just hoping that will continue throughout the city with the different parks. That was my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Frank?
No.
Vice Mayor Clower?
As often happens, I'm a day late on this, but I'd like to wish all the mothers a happy Mother's Day, especially my wife and my mother and mother-in-law. We had a very nice day yesterday, so it was pretty cool. And then the other thing was on Saturday, we attended the Hollister Police Department Foot Pursuit, which was a really neat event. It was held at the Brigantino Spray Fields, which was really the first time I've gone there and spent a significant amount of time. And when we got our act together, that's going to be an awesome park. It's going to take some time and a lot of money, I'm sure, but it's a neat location. And the event was put on very well. It seemed like there was a lot more people there this year than last year, and I'm sure next year there'll be even more.
Excellent. Councilmember Gilliam?
I also want to echo what Councilmember Clower said. Happy Mother's Day to all. And then I noticed the fire department had a pretty big fire response at Suds Car Wash, and I happened to be in the neighborhood, and I saw that, and I saw the chiefs give a press conference, and I thought just want to point out that he did really well, and I was proud that our department was out there and the chief was representing us with the news crews there.
Excellent. I want to thank our Congressman Jimmy Panetta. He had the 17th annual art competition congressional district here in Hollister, first time that anybody can remember. And one of our students got second place in it. So that's great news. And I want to thank him for it. Bill, and I know Mike has talked about this, but for the parks, if we can, I don't think we're going to do any more shredded rubber tires. If we can just make sure as we're doing the improvements that we're making sure we're getting the calculations in there to avoid that.
If that's a policy that the council wants to make, no more shredded rubber, then absolutely, because I think our intention is it actually ends up being a really good surface for us. I mean, I know that there's some people who are kind of a little bit fearful of that. I think that a lot of those studies have sort of been denounced now. It tends to work out very well, but if that's a policy that you folks want to make, then we can move away from that and try something else.
I think we can maybe, as a council, have that discussion.
Yeah. Okay.
It is a little. On a hot day, it does smell like oil. And it's just not a. I don't think it's the right. It worked. It did its part for its time, but I think there's other alternatives now. We can look into that, or have a study session on that, or
Okay.
a council meeting. Would be great.
That's fine. What's that?
All right, city manager.
Okay, for me, a few things. As a result of the sort of the retreat, we're going to try to have a budget meeting on study session to go through the operating budget for fiscal year 17-18 on June 1st. June 5th is going to likely be a large night. I think I'm going to be offering kind of a little bit about a discussion we had earlier about cannabis and the first two dispensaries, or the operating permits, or the first step, I guess we can call, of having the two dispensaries in Hollister. So be prepared for that. As a pretty big night.
What date was that?
June 5th, our regular meeting of June 5th. Okay. The parks, Mickey, what we've, Councilman Luna, we have tried to, we're trying to spread our events throughout parks. That's part of the Park and Recreation Commission's goal, is to try to have various events at all of our parks. Logistically, some of them just don't work out right, but I know that I've heard that some of the events at Calaveras have been worked out really nicely, and I can't take any credit for any of the work that's been done over there. John said my name, and I'm about the last person that deserves credit. It's probably all Mike and Derek and all of his crews that work hard on that stuff. RFPs, Councilman Gillio, essentially the three types that we're normally used to doing is construction projects going out to bid. Obviously, that's pretty much set in stone by the California state law, which the Green Book, which requires us to essentially take the lowest responsible bid. We do RFPs for professional services. There's not necessarily a local requirement in that. However, generally speaking, when a professional service comes to town and they have sub-consultants that are local, whether they be the engineers or whatnot, we know that we have a relationship with them, and they usually fare better because there's just not that learning curve involved. And then thirdly, there is a purchasing agreement that allows a local vendor to receive essentially a 5%, what do we call that? Where's Brad?
Preference.
Yeah, they get a 5% preference. So if they're within 5% of the lowest bid on a purchase, then we can go with that local vendor. So that's sort of how it's been. That's how that particular thing works for us at this point. We'll have that meeting on the 19th on the LAFCO annexations out of jurisdictions, and I think that's about it.
Okay.
June
Thank you.
19th.
June 19th.
City Attorney?
Nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
Chief?
Nothing to report except thank you to all the participants that came out to the second annual Foot Pursuit. Brigantine was a great venue, and I can't wait till they develop that place. It really is great.
Absolutely. City Clerk?
Nothing to report other than I'm going to training, and I'm hoping to come back smarter, so thanks.
If I can digress, the Foot Pursuit was nowhere near a 5K. I think it was about 12 miles. My time proved that it was way longer than 3.1 miles.
Thank you. All right. H, I, J, and K, there's no business. Is there a motion to
Move for
adjourn?
adjournment.
Motion, is there a second? Second. Motion, second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming out tonight.
Information.